What happens when the guy scrubbing dishes knows more about your business than the chef running the kitchen? Brayden Lowell stood at the back door of location number 6, one of the 9 cafes he'd built from scratch over the past 13 years, dressed in a plain black t-shirt, a faded baseball cap, and scuffed sneakers. His beard was grown out, his voice lower than usual. He looked nothing like the CEO who once appeared on local billboards holding a French press and smiling like someone who'd never missed a night of sleep. He had multiple nights, actually. Over the past month, customer reviews for this cafe had dipped. Food was inconsistent, morale seemed low, but the final push came when he overheard 2 employees talking during a surprise visit to Store 3. "I begged not to be transferred to 6, one said. "Too much yelling. No support. Why don't people quit? They say it's just the chef's way." That stuck with him. He'd never met the chef at location 6. The place had opened during the pandemic, and Brayden had been too busy keeping the company afloat to meet every new hire personally. All 9 stores were branded the same, but each ran with some autonomy. Now, he needed truth not filtered through a district manager, not dressed up in reports. So he became Bryce Logan, a temp from an agency that supposedly staffed food service workers. He'd created a fake profile, launched a throwaway email, and even forged his own resume. It was easy. He knew the system. He'd built it. A young woman with short, curly hair stepped out, holding the back door open. "You the temp?" "Yeah," he nodded. "Bryce, cool, I'm Noel. Morning prep's a mess today, so welcome." Inside, the kitchen was loud, not with music or laughter, just slamming pans and the bark of orders. Brayden tied on an apron and followed Noel straight to the prep table. "Chop that spinach, dice those peppers, and don't touch anything labeled chef only," she said. "Got it." He kept his head down and worked fast. Noel, maybe 25, worked faster. She moved from station to station like she'd done it 1,000 times. She was polite but distant, clearly overworked. Her hands moved on autopilot. 2 hours in, the chef stormed in. "Why the hell are the eggs still in the fridge, Noel?" he snapped. Brayden looked up. Chef was tall, with a thick jaw and a permanent scowl. His name tag said Chef Mario. His voice cut like a knife through the already tense air. "I was chopping vegetables, chef," Noel replied, not meeting his eyes. "That's not your job." "Jesus, do I have to do everything myself?" "Nah, chef, I got it," Brayden said quickly, walking toward the fridge. Chef Mario turned to him, sizing him up. "Who are you?" "Temp, Bryce." "Then stay out of the way. I don't need new people slowing me down." Brayden held his tongue and backed off. He recognized the fear in Noel's body language. She didn't flinch, but she didn't fight back either. At break, they sat behind the building on old milk crates. "He always like that?" Brayden asked. Noel peeled the wrapper off her protein bar. "Yeah, but it's just his way." "Been here since this place opened, doesn't mean anything by it." Brayden frowned. "You okay with it?" She shrugged. "We're understaffed. 2 people quit last week. Honestly, I'm just trying to make rent." Brayden leaned forward. "How come people keep quitting?" Noel glanced toward the door. "Because he screams at everyone. Last girl cried in the walk-in, but no one does anything. District manager says Mario's numbers are solid, so..." Brayden gritted his teeth. "What about you? Why stay?" She gave a tired smile. "Because someone's gotta keep this place from falling apart." By the end of the shift, Brayden's arms ached. He'd chopped, washed, prepped, and stocked nonstop. No one slacked except Mario, who spent most of his time shouting instructions instead of actually helping. He didn't even touch the prep table, and when an order came out wrong, it was never his fault. "Who sliced the tomatoes like this? They look like trash." Brayden stepped in. "That was me, chef. Figures." Useless. Later that night, Brayden sat in his car in the parking lot, hands gripping the steering wheel. He'd built this cafe brand to be a place where people loved to work, where there was respect, teamwork, and growth. He thought his values had made it through the layers of management. Clearly, they hadn't. Tomorrow, he'd be back. Not as a CEO, not yet, but as Bryce the temp who wasn't going to let this go. Brayden showed up the next morning 15 minutes early, wearing the same clothes from the day before. He could already hear the kitchen fan humming through the walls as he stood waiting outside. The door opened a few minutes later with a short, curt nod from a guy in a delivery uniform who barely noticed him. Inside, the place was quieter than the day before. Noel was already slicing bread. Her sleeves were rolled up and there were circles under her eyes that hadn't been there yesterday. She didn't say anything at first, just handed him a pair of gloves and pointed toward a box of mushrooms. "This batch came in yesterday. Still good, but wash them twice," she said without looking up. "Got it," Brayden replied, stepping into the rhythm. As he rinsed, he noticed the prep list for the day was longer than yesterday's by at least a third. Some items were circled 3 times in red ink, urgent, scrawled beside them in capital letters. "Is this normal?" he asked. Noel exhaled through her nose, pausing the serrated knife mid-slice. "Nah, chef double-booked a catering order without telling anyone. 40-person brunch. Deliveries start at 10. Brayden checked the clock. It was just after 7. "Anyone else coming to help? Doubt it," she said. Tina called out. She was supposed to do fruit trays. He rinsed his hands and moved to the fruit station without asking. By 8, the kitchen was already heating up literally and figuratively. The stovetop hissed. The walk-in door thudded shut every few minutes. Noel didn't stop moving. Brayden watched her juggle prep, restock the pastry case and run back to the printer every time a new ticket came through. The only time she paused was to open a drawer and pull out a bottle of ibuprofen. "You all right?" he asked. "My back's been wrecked since Monday," she said, shaking 2 pills into her palm. "But if I take time off, I lose hours, so—" He handed her a cup of water from the prep sink. She nodded her thanks and downed the pills. Chef Mario arrived just past 8:30. He didn't greet anyone. He didn't check on prep. He walked straight to the grill, flipped on 2 burners and started shouting instructions. "Where's the goat cheese spread?" hooted the fruit skewers. "These look like someone made them with their feet." "Why are there only 6 orders of sweet potato hash prepped?" Brayden kept quiet, focusing on garnishing plates for the catering trays. Noel tried to keep up, but it was clear she was stretched thin. Every time she moved toward something, Mario called her back to do something else. "Chef, you told me to. I told you to do what's urgent. Think with your head." By 9, the air was thick with tension. At one point, Brayden caught Mario crumpling up a mistake ticket and tossing it across the room in frustration. "Start over. You're wasting product," he barked. Brayden stepped in. "We could still use most of that pastry tray." "It's just the labeling that's off." "Are you the chef now?" Mario snapped. "No, just saying it saves product. Stick to washing produce, Bryce. Let the professionals handle quality." Brayden bit the inside of his cheek and turned back to the prep table. Minutes later, a server walked in, young, maybe 19, with dyed blue hair and a nervous posture. She held up a ticket. "Chef, table 11's asking for no onions again. They said they mentioned it up front." Mario didn't even look up. "Then they can pick them off." The girl hesitated. "They said they're allergic." He slammed down his spatula. "Then they shouldn't eat here. Tell them the kitchen's busy and they can wait like everyone else." Brayden stepped forward. "Allergies aren't optional if someone gets sick. Do you want to run the kitchen?" Mario cut in, voice rising. "Because if not, shut your mouth." The server was already backing out of the kitchen, visibly shaken. Brayden's hands stilled on the cutting board. For a second, he considered walking out after her, but he didn't. He needed to see the full picture. At 10:20, the first catering order was picked up. Trays were loaded into a van by a pair of guys from a local events company. Neither thanked the staff. Noel wiped sweat from her forehead with her sleeve and leaned against the wall for a second. "I haven't peed since 7, she mumbled. Brayden handed her a bottle of water. "Go, I'll cover." When she came back, Chef was mid-rant again, this time at a prep cook, tall, lanky, barely older than a high schooler who had apparently miscounted portions. "Do you even know how to multiply, or do they not teach that at whatever school lets you wear that stupid nose ring?" The boy didn't answer. His hands were clenched at his sides and his eyes were glassy. Brayden stepped in. "That's not okay," he said, loud enough to be heard. Mario turned. "Excuse me, you don't talk to people like that. I run this kitchen." "Not for long," Brayden said. There was a moment of silence. The room froze. Even the sounds from the front of house dimmed. Mario laughed once, sharp and humorless. "You think you're in charge now?" Brayden pulled off his gloves, walked to the back, and returned with his phone. He tapped into a folder and pulled up a photo himself, standing in front of the first café, shaking hands with the mayor on opening day. He held it up. "My name is Brayden Lowell. I'm the founder and owner of this company, and after what I've seen here, you're done." Mario's mouth opened, then closed. No sound came out. "You've created a toxic environment, endangered customers, and disrespected every person in this kitchen. Pack your things. You're terminated, effective immediately." There was no applause, no celebration, just a heavy silence and the sound of the prep cooler humming in the corner. Brayden turned to the prep cook. "Are you okay?" The kid nodded, barely. "You don't ever have to take that again." "Not here." Brayden walked to the front, asked a key holder to lock Mario's access, and called the district manager personally. "Effective now," he said. "Chef Mario is no longer employed. I'll be on site the rest of the week. Reassign his duties between myself and the leads. And we're going to fix this place from the inside." When he came back into the kitchen, Noel was standing by the sink, arms crossed, eyes wide. "You're really him?" she asked. "Yeah." She looked down at her apron, then back at him. "I thought you were just another guy trying to make rent." "I used to be," he said. "Before all this." She didn't smile, just nodded. That afternoon, Brayden stayed through the lunch rush. He manned the grill, ran dishes, and helped clean the walk-in. He didn't take a break, neither did Noel. But something began to shift. Orders came in and went out without shouting. The prep cook started humming a little as he worked. The server with the blue hair returned to the kitchen and gave Brayden a small nod of thanks. At closing, Brayden posted a handwritten note on the staff bulletin board. "Tomorrow we meet at 8 a.m., all staff, paid meeting, real changes start here." He didn't need to sign it. Everyone knew now, and none of them had forgotten. The next morning, the kitchen at Café 6 opened to silence. No pots clanging, no shouting cutting through the air. The usual tension had been replaced by something else: uncertainty. Everyone stood in a loose circle near the prep station. Some leaned on counters, some crossed their arms. No one spoke until Brayden stepped forward and dropped a battered clipboard onto the stainless steel table. "I won't waste your time," he said. "This place has been running on fear. That ends today." The staff stood still. Noel was near the back, arms at her sides. The prep cook, Mateo, barely looked up. The others, 2 baristas and a server who had just clocked in, watched him carefully. Brayden walked around the table, picking up a stack of order slips from the day before. Half these came back with notes. "Missing items. Cold food. That's not on you. That's on me for letting things slide. I should have seen it sooner." Mateo shifted slightly but didn't speak. "I want to hear from you," Brayden continued. "What's not working? What's making your jobs harder than they need to be?" A pause. Then the barista with the short buzz cut spoke first. "We're constantly short on supplies. Syrups run out mid-shift. No one restocks anything properly." The other barista, a woman with thick glasses, added, "The grinder's been broken for 3 weeks. We've been using the backup from the food truck." Brayden nodded. "That's on our maintenance schedule. I'll escalate it today." Mateo finally spoke, eyes still on the floor. "I've been doing double shifts since April. I asked to be trained on hotline, but Mario said I wasn't fast enough." Noel didn't raise her hand. She just said, "We haven't had a staff meeting in over a year. Schedules come out random. No one knows what's happening until it's already on fire." Brayden let that sit for a moment. "You deserve better," he said. "But I can't change anything unless I know it's broken. So here's what's happening starting now." He gestured to the clipboard. "We're moving to a rotating feedback schedule. Weekly check-ins, anonymous surveys, and open floor every Friday before close. You'll be paid for that time. You bring the truth, I'll bring the fixes." He looked around the room. No one objected. I'm also assigning a temporary lead, someone who's been holding this place together when no one else stepped up. He turned to Noel. Noel, I need you to help me stabilize the kitchen. Not forever, just until we hire a new chef. You'll have authority over scheduling, task delegation, and you'll report directly to me. Noel blinked. I'm not a manager, I know, Brayden said, but you've already been leading, you just weren't getting paid for it. She didn't speak right away, then she nodded once. Fine, she said. But I'm not babysitting. You won't have to, he said. You'll have backup. The meeting broke. People scattered to their stations. No one smiled, but they moved lighter than they had the day before. Brayden stayed on the floor. By late morning, they were behind again. The rush had hit harder than expected, and the system was still raw. Orders printed faster than they could plate, and Noel had to jump between the grill and the pastry case more than once. Brayden worked beside Mateo on the sandwich station. The kid was all nerves, quick hands, but second-guessing every step. At one point he stopped mid-assembly. Does this go with arugula or spinach? Spinach, Brayden said, but you can always ask. Mateo looked down. Chef used to slap the cutting board if I got it wrong. Brayden didn't respond right away, then he said, that's not leadership, that's abuse. Mateo nodded, still not fully convinced. By two, they'd made it through. Barely. Brayden finally stepped outside for a breath of air. The back alley was quiet. He leaned against the wall, wiping his forehead with a towel from his pocket. He heard the door creak open. Noel stepped out, holding a small notebook. Your handwriting sucks, she said, flipping it open. But I copied your notes into a real prep list. Brayden laughed once. Fair. She sat on the crate across from him. You know, people don't trust change around here, she said. They've been burned too many times. I get that. You're gonna need more than meetings and promises. I know, she watched him for a moment. Then let me help build it, he nodded. That's why I asked. They sat in silence for a while, then she stood. We still need someone on Fryer tomorrow. Mateo's willing, but he needs training. I'll do it, Brayden said. You serious? I've burned myself in 4 different kitchens. Might as well make it 5. She cracked half a grin. All right, Bryce, he gave her a look. Still calling me that? I like it better, she said and went back in. The next day Brayden was on Fryer. He worked through lunch with Mateo watching closely. They moved slow but clean. Orders came out on time, no one got yelled at. A new server came in to train a quiet teenager named Ash with a thick binder of allergy notes and a nervous glance at every customer. Brayden watched how Noel handled them. Patient. Direct. She gave Ash a walk-through of the kitchen layout, where the allergen-safe items were stored and who to check with if unsure. Always ask, she said. Don't guess, I don't care how busy it is. Brayden nodded from across the line. That's what leadership looked like. Later, while restocking the walk-in, Brayden caught the tail end of a conversation between the baristas. He actually listens, one whispered. Yeah, said the other. Feels weird, right? That night, Brayden stayed behind to clean. Noel passed him the mop bucket. You don't have to do that, she said. I do, he said, wringing it out. I missed the mess for too long. She didn't argue. As they locked up, Brayden turned to her. I'm hiring a full-time kitchen manager. Someone who knows food, knows people, and can rebuild this team the right way. She raised an eyebrow. Let me guess you already have someone in mind. I'd like to talk to you about the role, he said. I said I'm not a manager. You're already doing the job. She didn't reply right away. Then she said, let me think about it. Take your time. They walked out together, the streetlights flickering on as the sky deepened to slate. Inside the cafe, the prep list for tomorrow was already posted. The walk-in was labeled, the grill was clean, the fear was gone. There was still a long way to go, but for the first time in a long time, the kitchen wasn't burning, it was rebuilding. A week later, Brayden sat at the corner table in the back of Café 6, the worst seat in the house, just next to the restrooms, where the air smelled faintly of mop water and sanitizer. He'd chosen it deliberately. From here, he could see everything. The baristas pulling shots with focused hands, the flow of servers moving between tables, and the kitchen door swinging back and forth like a heartbeat. No yelling, no slammed trays, just the steady rhythm of people doing their jobs. He hadn't stepped fully back into the CEO role yet. For now, he was just Brayden, the guy who showed up every morning at 6 and left after close. He'd let the team see him sweat on the fryer, at the sink, even sweeping the alley when garbage pickup had been delayed. Now they saw him watch and they didn't flinch. Noel walked out of the kitchen carrying 2 plates avocado toast done right, with firm eggs and crisp radish slices, and dropped them at a 2-top with a nod. On her way back, she stopped at his table. "You're early," she said. "Wanted to see the morning rush. We're short again. Ash's bus broke down. You need me on register." "No, I pulled in one of the floaters from 7. He's solid." Brayden nodded. "Okay." She didn't move right away. "You still want to talk about the manager role?" He leaned back slightly. "Only if you're ready. I ran numbers last night. Labor's still tight. We're not going to hit margin if we keep bringing in temps just to survive Thursdays. So we shift the model, trim hours early in the week, stack Thursday and Friday." "You're thinking like an operator. I'm not taking it unless we fix the pay structure. Mateo's been here 9 months and still makes entry level. I already had HR draft a revision. Tiered raises at 6 and 12 months plus cross-training bonuses. We piloted here." She blinked once. "You serious?" "I don't play games with people's rent." Noel nodded, then glanced toward the kitchen. "I'll take the job, but I want to train someone to backfill me. I'm not burning out in 6 months. Brayden smiled at that. "I wouldn't let you." She walked off without waiting for thanks. Inside the kitchen, Mateo had taken over Noel's old prep station. He moved with more confidence, now still methodical, but without the hesitation that had slowed him before. He'd trained on hotline twice that week and gotten through both sessions without a single correction. Brayden had noticed he stopped double-checking every step. The kid was starting to trust his own judgment. Behind the bar, the buzz-cut barista Shay called out a drink order and passed a cortado across the counter without spilling a drop. The new espresso grinder had arrived 2 days ago, and they'd already cut the average drink time by nearly 40 seconds per order. It was a small thing, but it made a difference. At 11, the café hit its peak. The line wrapped around the pastry case, and the kitchen printer whirred nonstop. Brayden stepped behind the counter and started running plates. He didn't ask. He just moved. A woman in her 30s stood waiting near the register with a toddler on her hip. The kid was drooling on a stuffed dinosaur and squirming hard. The woman looked exhausted. "Need a high chair?" Brayden asked. She looked startled. "Yes, please." He grabbed one from the corner, wiped it down, and brought it over to table 4. "Thanks," she said. "This place feels different than it used to." He met her eyes. "We're working on it." By noon, the line thinned. The staff cycled through quick breaks, never more than 10 minutes, but they kept moving, always someone covering. Brayden sat back at his table and pulled out his notebook. He'd filled nearly 20 pages over the past week. Not with numbers, those he kept separately, but with names, habits, strengths, gaps. He wrote down things like Ash checks allergen chart twice, good instinct, or Shay adjusts music volume when guests crowd near bar awareness. These were the details that didn't show up in P and LTKS. Mid-afternoon, he met with the district manager, Carla, in the back office. She was sharp, data-driven, and had been with the company since year 3. She closed the door behind her. "You really cleared the whole kitchen and rebuilt it from inside." "I didn't clear anyone," Brayden said. "One person cleared themselves by creating a place people were afraid to work." She nodded slowly. "Mario called HR, claimed discrimination." Brayden didn't flinch. "I have footage, 3 separate accounts of verbal abuse. One incident involving a food allergy that could have sent a customer to the ER. No case." Carla tilted her head. "You want him blacklisted from rehire?" Brayden didn't answer right away. Then, "Yes, and flagged with our staffing partners. No tolerance." "Understood." She opened her laptop. "You ready to roll some of these changes system-wide?" "Not yet," he said. We test here first, 2 months, weekly data pulls, anonymous staff pulse checks. Carla raised an eyebrow. Since when do you do pulse checks? Since someone told me she didn't know what was happening until it was already on fire. She smiled faintly. You're different. I got reminded who built this company. It wasn't me. That night, Brayden stayed through close. He helped wipe down the back line while Mateo counted inventory. Noel reviewed the labor report and adjusted next week's schedule by hand, checking each name against their availability sheet. On their way out, the last few staff members passed him by with nods. Not forced, not afraid. Just acknowledgement. He locked the door behind them. Outside, the air was cool. The street was quieter than usual, and the glow from the cafe windows spilled onto the sidewalk like warm light from a lantern. Noel stood beside him, arms folded. You heading back to HQ next week, eventually? You gonna do this at the other stores, one at a time? She looked at him. You think they're all like this? He shook his head. Some are better, some are worse, but I stopped looking. That was the problem. She didn't say anything for a moment, then, don't disappear again, people notice. He met her eyes. I won't. They walked toward the lot in silence. Behind them, Café 6 stood still. No noise, no fear. Just the hum of a place starting over with its people at the center, where they'd always belonged.